Hello and good evening, everyone. My name is Bill Miller, and on behalf of the Caneo Open Space Foundation, I want to welcome you to tonight's presentation, our first webinar of the 2025 speaker series. It's titled The Coyotes Among Us with Executive Director and founder of the Teranga Ranch, Dana Stangel. We are so thrilled that you are here joining us tonight for this exciting and important presentation. However, before we get started, I'd like to take a moment of silence for those affected by the horrible wildfires in the last few weeks. Our vision at the Caneo Open Space Foundation is to inspire the community to act to preserve our Caneo natural open space, its trail system, the cultural heritages, and unique ecosystems so that they will be protected and enjoyed for generations to come. As an all-volunteer nonprofit organization, this vision is supported through volunteerism, fundraising, and education. Each year, we host this speaker series to help bring interesting and informative information to all of you on topics related to our beautiful Conejo Valley. As the Foundation's president, I'd like to take this opportunity to also especially thank the many donors joining us tonight. Whether you whether you contributed because of this event or are an annual donor, your contributions make a major impact in the work that we do. And we thank you tremendously for making a difference in your community. Please continue to keep the Caneo Open Space Foundation in your philanthropic plans and feel free to reach out to us anytime. It's almost time to move on to our wonderful program tonight, but before we do have a few housekeeping items I'd like to talk about. First, note that all attendees are muted for the duration of the presentation. The presentation will be roughly 45 minutes with an opportunity for questions afterwards. We do welcome your questions submitted anytime during the presentation with the Q&A tool at the bottom of your screen. There's a little box that says Q&A. Use that, please. The chat function, as you may notice, has been disabled for this event. My fellow board member, Steve Johnson, is with us tonight and will be moderating the Q&A for us this evening. We will also be recording this event so that you can rewatch or share with your friends. It takes us about a week or so to get that up on our website, but we will certainly let you know when that happens. As mentioned, Dana Stangel of Teranga Ranch is our presenter tonight, so a little bit of information about her. Dana is a credentialed biology teacher and former Peace Corps volunteer. She is the founder and executive director of Teranga Ranch, a wildlife organization that educates Californians about local wildlife and teaches them how to coexist. Teranga Ranch teaches community classes about local wildlife, presents workshops, and hosts field trips. Education also occurs at schools and at homeowners association meetings, particularly when there's a perceived wildlife issue, like coyotes, for example. Teranga Ranch provides opportunities for anyone to get outside and involve themselves with wildlife, nature, and science. So all of that said, and without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Dana. So Dana, please take it away.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for being here, for taking some time out of your evening to talk coyote. All right. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And so when we're talking about coyotes tonight, you can see that I'm an urban wildlife specialist. So what I'm going to be talking about with you is coyotes on the urban wildlife interface, coyotes in more urban environments, coyotes in our neighborhoods. That's what I'm talking about, not coyotes out in the wild somewhere. So that's why, so that's good to know, right? And I am the founder and executive director of Teranga Ranch, and that's who's doing your presentation. Teranga Ranch recognizes and acknowledges the first people of this ancestral and unceded territory. We honor their elders, past and present, and the descendants, Tongva, Tataviam, and Chumash. We recognize that these indigenous people are still here, and we are committed to lifting up their stories, culture, and community. And to learn more about the land you're on, go to native-land.ca. It's a really great resource. And who are we? We are a local volunteer-run nonprofit, and our whole thing is teaching people about native wildlife. Kids are likely to learn about more exotic wildlife on a trip to the zoo or a page in the science book, but they don't get to learn about coyotes like we're going to learn about tonight. So my organization does educational programs. We do field trips. We do backyard consultations when there's perceived conflict. And we strive to help keep backyard pets safe and to promote coexistence that doesn't involve guns, traps, or poisons. And we exist also on donation. And so you can find that link on our website if you're interested. Tonight, we're here to talk about Canis latrans, or the coyote, right? And there he is, boldly staring back, isn't he? Where does the coyote fit in sort of the canine hierarchy, right? Where is he? So size-wise and niche-wise, he's here, right? You've got your wolf, who's sort of a bigger animal, who is has an entirely different lifestyle, right? And then you've got dogs who are domesticated and are often larger or a whole variety of sizes. You've got the jackal on another continent who looks so similar and has a very similar lifestyle to our coyote here. And then you've got fox, who's also a canid, but much smaller with a different lifestyle again. But just sort of size wise, I like to throw this picture out so people can get an idea. And that's a red fox. We have gray foxes here in Southern California. So one big misconception about coyotes in our neighborhoods is that they're just visiting for some reason. Like, why are they here? Like, did they come from the mountains because there was a fire? Or did they come down because of the drought? Or did they come down because there's been an explosion in the feral cat population? Like, everybody has their idea of why the coyotes are temporarily here. And the reality is that the coyote was born and raised in that neighborhood and will have their babies in that neighborhood, and the babies will disperse not too far. They'll still be in the general vicinity. And that's kind of how it goes. They're not coming down from the hills for a visit. They're not, they, of course, wildlife can be driven from an area by a fire, but the idea that coyotes are in our neighborhoods because of that in general is incorrect. So they are there, they find places to den right in the neighborhood, and we're going to learn about the reason why they're there and why that makes sense in just a second, but that's where they are. So we're, and in fact, there are studies that might indicate that they do just as well in an urban environment as they do out in a more wild environment. Maybe better in the urban environment, actually, if you think about the lack of larger predators and the abundance of resource. When we look at their range and their natural history, what we see is that they have followed humans over time. So, some animals follow the crop and some animals follow the herd, and it's, seasonal or whatever, but coyotes have followed humans. And the reason for that is that wherever there are humans, there are rodents, and rodents are coyotes' favorite food. Coyote has been a part of human lives for since ancient Mexico. It's been recorded, and they are prevalent in stories and lore in Native American stories. In the Chumash creation story, Coyote plays a very prominent role. So I'm not going to get into this too much now because we have limited time, but Coyote in lore is super interesting and really fun. Coyote relationships, they're crazy. All right, this is a cool picture, I think, only because people ask me about this a lot. And the only reason in this case the bobcat appears to be dominant is because he is guarding a den. But I like this picture because you can see that they are a similar size, right? And they sort of overlap territories and avoid each other. They're both hunt rodents. And so there's that relationship there. But if the situation here were reversed and Coyote was guarding his den, then Bobcat would be the one to back off. So it's all about the situation. And you may have heard stories about coyote and badger engaging in hunting activities together. And, the word on the street is that when they do this, they don't share, but they pretty much guarantee that one of them will get the rodent, right? Because it's either going to run or it's going to dig. And if it runs, coyote can get it. If it digs, badger can get it, right? Um, so that's an interesting and fun thing to explore on YouTube when you have time. Now, let's talk about family relationships for a second. They will have their babies in April, and the gestation period is about 60 days, which means that right about now they are busy with denning activity, finding that place where they're going to be having those babies and engaging in mating activities and being active in a different way in the community, right? And so these babies will be born in April. And in general, they will have, 2 to 6 babies in general. But you can see this picture on the bottom left where we have a mama coyote with about 14 babies. And that is what can happen when there is a disruption in the coyote pack. So we'll talk about that in a second. And then down here on the bottom right, you can see I have a picture of a den. So this is maybe 3 feet across, maybe 1.5 feet tall. And in the chaparral, it really blends right in. It could be in the way back of someone's backyard. It could be along a trail. It could be anywhere. Generally, they try to avoid people, in about 20 to 30 feet all around, but I've seen them in some pretty dense urban situations with dens. Now, we've got this situation where the coyote can have 2 babies or 14, right? And the reason why they might have 14 is because someone, I like to say, messed with the pack, right? In whatever way. And this is what happens when someone decides that there's a problem coyote in the area and they decide to engage in trapping or poisoning or some other activity to sort of get rid of this problem coyote. And when they do that, it affects the entire pack. They all know that someone is missing. And in general, when this happens, usually it's not just one, it's usually a few that are missing from the pack at the same time. And none of them could anticipate it. Nobody was getting sick, just suddenly they're gone. So when that happens, the following denning season, right, you're going to have a situation where number one, more females will be denning than they would have been otherwise, because now they're worried about their bodies are worried. Their bodies are biologically worried about the success and continuation of the pack, right? So they have this thing that's called compensatory reproduction. And so that means that instead of having two babies, they have 14. And instead of having one denning female in a certain area, there will be two. Or instead of having two, there will be three or four. So that is how they sort of make up for the missing coyote. And obviously it can lead to some real mayhem, right? Because if you're mama coyote and you are raising two babies, that's one thing. If you're mama coyote and you're raising 14 babies, you already know that the level of care is going to be different, and they may not all be getting the same messages from mom, and they're not all as likely to survive. Like there's a whole bunch of things that go with that, but also the main thing is that you've got a whole bunch of new untrained canines in the area. Whereas before they had canines that were aware of how everything worked because it's their neighborhood too. But the babies are learning everything from their parents. So they really need to have um, good care, and they get better care when there's just a couple or three of them. So what's in that noise that we hear when the coyote is yipping or howling at night? This is another, this is a big one. When I do presentations, a lot of the people ask me if an animal is being taken in the moment that that cacophony of is going on. And the answer is no. And I'm sure that many of the people here know that, right? When you hear that noise, that is coyote communication. That is, hey mom, how's it going over there? And hey Uncle Joe, how's it going over there? They do this verbal check-in with each other. They can all hear where everyone is because coyotes, as you may know from seeing them around your neighborhood, sometimes they're hanging out by themselves. Sometimes they're hanging out with a couple of buddies, but it isn't always the same. And so this is how they help keep track of where everyone is and how everyone's doing. So when they are taking their prey, when it's a rodent, for example, you wouldn't hear that at all. If it were something larger, um, like a pet, for example, you might hear a quick yip, but usually that's pretty fast, and usually they're not sharing or announcing or celebrating. So um, so that's what that is. So if you have been thinking that when you hear that, that's the terrible, tragic, loud death of something, you can rest easier now knowing that that is simply communication. Now, how can we coexist sharing space with these animals who are wild canines, right? How can we do this? They are in every neighborhood. So we need to figure it out, right? So there's some things that I like to talk to people about that might help them better coexist and keep coyotes a little further away from their residences and dwellings and stuff like that. So the first thing that I would say is to reduce the resources. What are the things that coyote might be coming in for? So we're going to talk about that. And then how are they getting in? There's not much we can do about that, but there are things we can do. So we're going to talk about that. And then retraining the current population. And I know that sounds crazy, right? Like we're going to get out there and we're going to train coyotes. And the answer is yes. The answer is we are absolutely going to train coyotes, and we can do that. And we are doing that even unknowingly every time a human has an interaction with a coyote or another animal, right? That animal. is the coyotes being trained? Was that a positive interaction? Was that a negative interaction? Is that something I want to look for and search out, or is that something I want to avoid? So we have the power to sort of train them. And so we'll talk about that. So what are the things that might be bringing them in? Food, right? So what is on the coyote menu? What is he looking for? He's looking for, well, in the Southern California, Los Angeles, Ventura County area, they have done some studies on the contents of coyote stomachs and also scat. And they found that our coyotes really like rabbit. That's one of their favorite things. And then after that, different kinds of rodents, all different kinds of rodents could be your friendly pocket gopher, it could be mice or rats, it could be, anything like that, anything they can catch, squirrels, right? They'll eat snakes and frogs and toads, again, whatever they can catch, because coyotes are opportunistic. So if they can get it and they can eat it, they're happy to do that, right? And if they would rather be nocturnal, but the food is available during the day, they will make themselves available during the day. So another misconception is that coyotes are nocturnal, and indeed they are not, especially when so many resources are available to them during the day. And then you see that giant sandwich, and you're like, what is she talking about? Why is there a sandwich on a picture about wildlife menus? And the answer is easy. They are omnivores. So unlike that bobcat we were looking at back there, who is an obligate carnivore and has to really only eat meat, the coyote is able to survive on a variety of vegetable matter and human foods and human trash. And so this is the actual, this and the rodent thing are the reason why they are so close to human residential areas and also human commercial areas. There's lots of trash opportunities there. And here's a case in point, right? Now, another thing that can bring those coyotes to the yard is cats that go outside. And it doesn't matter if the cat goes outside for 1 hour a day or if the cat lives outside. If he's out there, he would be, a target for a coyote. And so, and also when you have one or two of these cats, especially the ones that live out there, and if you're feeding them, like this situation, there's two things bringing the coyote. There's there's the cats themselves, and there's the cat food, which is very aromatic, and that scent carries and will bring the coyotes over. They're very happy to eat domesticated pet food. That's delicious and full of calories, and they're very happy to eat that. So there's, and right, so then you think you've got this, and this is of course an exaggeration, but the reality is when people are feeding ferals, it isn't usually just a couple, it's usually a bunch. And that creates an even bigger magnet for coyotes to come. So if you are in a position where you find that you have to feed ferals, my recommendation is to put that food out for an hour or two in the early evening and pull it in by 7 p.m. so that wildlife isn't coming to the yard for that food. And then the other thing is the other wildlife, right? So this will bring the skunks and the raccoons and the opossums, right? And that will also bring coyote. So there will be a whole bunch of reasons why coyote would want to come to a yard where even this is happening, right? Because this also just brings skunk and raccoon and opossum and everyone. And bird feeding. So um, when the birds get in that feeder, or when the wind blows, the seed goes everywhere. And when that happens, the rodents come for it. And when the rodents come for the seed, the bobcats and the coyotes come for the rodents. And then if they happen to be in a yard where there's an unsupervised small animal, that's when, bad things can happen. But what brought them to the yard was the whole bunch of rodents that happen to be there, or squirrels or rabbits or whatever is drawn into that seed that's interesting to them. And so when I think about feeding birds, keep some stuff in mind, right? What are we feeding them? And what would they eat in the wild? What's healthy for their body for them to eat? What occurs locally? And if it's hummingbirds, are we cleaning that feeder? Because the mold can kill them. If we're creating a whole backyard oasis wonderland of bird feeders, what might happen if our situation suddenly changed and we weren't able to provide that anymore? Would it affect the population? And then also the big one, what else is being attracted to the yard as a result? And it goes up the chain. Something small is being attracted, something larger is attracted to something small, something larger is attracted to that, and eventually you've got big things in your yard because you were just happily feeding a bird. And of course, I'm going to provide you with what I think is a happy alternative. And I love planting natives. And there are some, the Theodore Payne website is a wonderful place to go where you can find out which native plants will attract which animals you want to see, whether it's a pollinator or a hummingbird or other wildlife that comes to graze on it or whatever. But that is a great website, theodorepayne.org, I believe. So more of those pictures of other animals on feeders, squirrels and mice and raccoons. This is my favorite. They did a good job trying to get that out there, but Bear was very interested in that. And feeding coyotes. So whenever there's an attack or a situation where a coyote is getting too close to humans, in every situation that I have personally been involved with, it has gone back to someone feeding that coyote. Now, when the person is feeding the coyote, they're not usually being as brazen as this person, but sometimes they are. Sometimes they're just leaving food out. But whatever they're doing that training we were talking about earlier, right? Now coyote associates people with food, or sliding glass doors with food, or whatever is the human element with the food, they will make that association, and they won't necessarily associate it with that single human. They will apply it to all humans, and they'll start, and so for example, someone at a public park may see a coyote, and they may sit, and it may be kind of close to them, close enough where they could toss a bit of their peanut butter and jelly sandwich to that coyote, and that coyote will eat it, and that coyote will come closer, right? And that person is probably a young adult and with their family, and they finish that activity, and the coyote leaves, and they leave, and it's all over. And then the next family comes, and these are smaller children, and they're walking around with peanut butter and jelly in their hands. And the coyote approaches to try to take the peanut butter and jelly from their hand. Or maybe they don't even have the sandwich in their hand. Maybe their hand just smells like food. But in these attacks on children in general, or on people, usually they are around the thigh area of the person or in the hands, but not at the neck where a canine would attack if that's what they were going for. It's often a misunderstanding, and the reason they have lost that fear of humans is because someone inadvertently trained them. And also, usually that person is a good person with a good heart who cares, who loves the coyotes and the wildlife and wants to just make sure that with the fires or with the drought or with the neighbors who are against them, they want to provide that oasis for them. But what they don't realize is that they're creating a more dangerous situation for their favorite coyote, because now he's going to go looking for that from other people who will not be happy to provide it, and in fact will be afraid or angry or whatever. Um, so, so it's a bad idea to feed wildlife, and it gets to once they lose that fear, you have to try to put it back in them. And it's just better if we don't engage. The way that we coexist is by them having a healthy fear and respect of us, and us having that same respect of them. One of my favorite things to talk about is animal sign. And for Coyote, he's got his beautiful scat and his beautiful track. What I will notice, and I'd like to just, attribute my friend Kim Cabrera here. If you follow her on social media, she's amazing. And she's an amazing tracker, and she's got amazing pictures and explanations of animal tracks and prints if you're interested in that. So when I find coyote scat, I know that that's what it is, because in general, I will see a combination of fur and seeds, and I will see that it's a certain size, which is bigger than fox. And it'll have a little bit of a twisty end, and it's not really that segmented. Bobcat, on the other hand, fur, no seed, very segmented. Same size though. So, and then let's look at this track for a second. I want you to notice that it is sort of oval in shape. One of the big questions that comes up when we talk is, hey, how do I tell a canine print from a feline print? Canine will be more oval, feline will be more round, just in general. And also canine, I can see those claw marks because canines can't retract their claws like felines can. So if it's a cat print, I'm probably not going to see the claw marks, although depending on the substrate, I might. But with a canine, you are usually going to see those claw marks. And notice these claw marks are all facing the same direction. They're all going in an upward way, because coyote lives on, soil terrain, right? Whereas to tell the difference between a dog print and a coyote print, a dog's would be more splayed in every direction, because a dog spends more time on hard surfaces like your floor, concrete, pavement, etc. And usually, depending on the size, I mean, the print of the dog will have to do with the size of the dog. Coyote prints are smaller than you think relative to the size of the coyote. And then we have mange. So one thing that's really, really important to anyone, anywhere, no matter if you live in the city or the country, is to not use rodenticide. It's poison. It's a closed system that we live in, and the poison isn't going anywhere. So there are a variety of other options, and we are available for consult on those options. But even if what you're doing is a snap trap, even though it's not my favorite option, it's better than poison, because poison works its way up through the system. So, the rat or the mouse eats it, but doesn't die right away. And while it's dying or after it dies, then an animal, whatever animal, fox, coyote, bobcat, comes and eats it. And now that animal has rodenticide in their system. And after they've had a few of those rodenticide-laden rodents, all their defenses sort of get broken down, and now their bodies are open to the diseases that might occur in the wild. And for these animals around us, bobcats, bears, mountain lions, and coyotes, mange is a real thing, and you may have seen it in your neighborhood. And it may not have been even this bad. You may have just seen sort of a scraggly tail. That's sort of the first sign of it. But it's a skin disease And what will happen is their hair will fall out, their eyes will crust over, and they're unable to see, which makes them unable to hunt. And that's how they slowly pass away. And it's terrible. And we can avoid a lot of this by not using rodenticide and by encouraging those we know, our family members and our friends, to also not use rodenticide. So this is an old statistic only because I don't have a new one. But the percentage of animals in and around the Santa Monica Mountains with rat poison in their system, bobcats, 92%, mountain lions, 90%, coyotes, 83%. And these are in the Santa Monica Mountains. These are not even the ones that are in the residential areas. And dogs, right? This is a big problem. And when we get called out for a situation, it is often because a coyote has taken a dog. And we like to help people take precautions so that this doesn't happen. And in these cases, one of the main things that the person could have done to avoid these altercations is leash their dog. Could have been a rattlesnake, could have been another person's off-leash dog. But when we leash our dogs, we greatly reduce the chances of them engaging in any sort of behavior that could be fatal. And also, we protect them by supervising them when they're outside, um, by using a leash that's short enough that we can see where the animal is at the end of it, right? These are things that we can do. We're going to talk a little bit more about it a few slides later. And given our situation with wildfire here in Southern California lately, we really want to just talk about how do coyotes react to that? What is their reality? Because it affects different sizes of wildlife and wildlife with different habits. The fire affects them in different ways. As we've said before, coyotes are they're opportunistic and they're very aware and they're very dynamic about changing their situation depending on whatever's going on. And so they're in general good about escaping a fire and not having to go back over the territory. Um, but they might, and they could get burned paws if they did do that. Um, and again, before we were talking about some of the differences and similarities between bobcats and coyotes, bobcats being more shy, it's harder for them to move out of their area and to do well in a place that's less familiar to them. Whereas coyotes, it's just part of their nature. So coyotes are more resilient than a lot of other wildlife when it comes to a wildfire. So coyote is brave and opportunistic and in our neighborhoods. But he's eating those rodents, so he's doing us a really big public service, right? Now, a lot of times when we do presentations, people will say, how tall does my fence have to be in order to keep the coyote out of my backyard so my dog can be safe out there unsupervised? And my answer is, I don't know of a fence that's big enough, tall enough. And there's a variety of reasons why. Okay, so when we have fences, next to those fences is usually furniture, plants, bushes, trees, and wildlife uses those things as a stairwell to get in and out of your yard. Coyotes also have a really interesting way of using a fence to they'll bounce off the middle of the fence and then go over the top. And so those coyote rollers that people talk about wanting to put on the top of their fence, I don't recommend those. And the reason is because wildlife, and particularly coyotes, can just clear it. They're not doing that thing trying to gain purchase. They just clear it. Here's some pictures of animals and fences. We've got coyote on a roof. If he can get on the roof, he can get to the backyard. We've got a snapping turtle who is climbing up a chain link fence. So if a snapping turtle can climb up a chain link fence, then there's really nothing that can be contained by a chain link fence, right? Then you've got, depending on how small your pet is, you've got flying predators. And then you've also got, in our area, foxes that are really good at climbing trees and using that to get in the yard. And here's a quick little video I want to show you of the coyote jumping the fence. He was in the yard and the dog spooked him. And this is a 6-foot wooden fence. No problem. Okay. And so when we're talking about retraining them, how can we do that? We can use humane hazing. And in this case, we've got little air horns that we have at our presentations. You can wear it around your neck. You can do this with a whistle or anything that's loud that would be surprising, right? And this scares wildlife, especially coyotes, away from your situation. So what are the things bringing them in? Water, bird seed, birds, squirrels, other wildlife, cat food, outdoor cats and dogs, fruit trees, trash, debris piles. What things keep them away? This is where we come in. We help people with motion sensing lights, motion sensing sprinklers, radios, scents. Hot wire fencing is not something we recommend. I have to take that off of here. Bells, air horns, lack of hiding places in the yard, contained trash, and our voice and presence. So these are the techniques that we use to keep the coyotes a little bit further away from our residences. And these are all sort of humane hazing techniques. Humane meaning we're not engaging with the animal ourselves, we're not hurting the animal, we're just creating a sense of, gosh, it's not fun in this area. I think I don't want to stay here. It's uncomfortable for me. It's scary. I don't like it. That's what we're doing. We need to contain our trash. That's really important. The lid needs to go all the way down. Doggy doors are not my favorite thing. In fact, I would say don't use them. And the reason I would say that is because you don't know if your dog is inside or outside. And you don't know who else is coming in your doggy door. We have worked with people who've had coyotes come in the dog door. When you're using a leash, we really recommend the 6-foot sturdy leash. The retractable leashes can fail. The mechanism can fail in a situation where you need to pull your dog closer to you. And also in general, I find that they're so long that you cannot see the dog at the end of the leash if he's under a bush or around the corner or whatever. So we don't recommend those. We do recommend barn owl boxes because that's another awesome way to encourage barn owls in your area. And they also help deter the rodents. And if we have outdoor animals, they should be able to be contained, especially overnight. If we have cats, catios are a fabulous option to keep that cat safe from cars and other cats and everything, and also keep native wildlife safe from cats. And I really love catios. I love them so much that we started a catio tour in Los Angeles so people could look around at other people's catios to see how cool they are. And Conejo Valley, spoiler alert, we're trying to bring one here. It's a super fun day looking at all the different designs and ideas from really small and simple to super big and amazing. And of course, we have that in a presentation about coyotes because it keeps cats safe from coyotes, right? There's a perfect example of a beautiful catio. Also, furthering this, if you're in the Los Angeles or Ventura County area, we have a coyote team. Our coyote team does presentations like this. We go to homeowners associations meetings. We work in areas where there is a den to help the people understand what's going on and keep their pets safe. So we do all sorts of really fun activities surrounding public education and coyotes. So if you're interested in that, please send me an email. We have some upcoming events. If this has been interesting to you, we have an online wildlife workshop series coming up, and coyotes is one of the topics. We'll talk for a whole 90 minutes on them and a whole bunch of other topics as well. It's on our website. We have a Salton Sea field trip coming up. We're very excited about that. It's a caravan trip. We have an Santa Cruz Island, 2 different trips coming up, and then the California Living Museum, which is an incredible resource in Bakersfield. And the resources that I use for this presentation and all my presentations are, if you haven't had the chance to read Coyote America by Dan Flores, it is one of my favorite coyote books. It's wonderful. It's really well written. Um, and if you're into coyotes, the urbancoyotestudy.com is where you will follow the Chicago Coyote Study and Dr. Stan Garrett. He is the person who documented coyotes denning in the parking lot of Soldier Field in downtown Chicago, where they are successfully living among the high rises. Kim Cabrera, Bear Tracker Films, is the tracking person I was referencing in the slides. California Department of Fish and Wildlife has a really great series of information on native wildlife, and coyote's one of them. Poison Free Malibu is a local resource. If you want to learn more about the rodenticide stuff, that's their specialty. Raccoon Nation is a really great YouTube video by Stan Garrett from the Urban Coyote Study. And also, I have a link to the camera we use, but if you're interested in that, you can always email me. That is my story. I will take questions.
Thank you very much, Dana. This is Steve Johnson. I'm the treasurer of the Canal Open Space Foundation, and I'm looking at the questions. We have had a number of guests register from Thousand Oaks High School today. If you have not yet submitted a question here from TO High School, the APES program, I've done a snapshot of the attendee list and we'll be sending it to the APES team coordinator. They'll presumably pick your names off the list. Okay, a couple of questions. One question that came from Carrie, Christine, and Kelly. Is it a good idea to leave water out for coyotes during drought, and in particular in recent consideration of fires?
That is such a great question. And it's a tough one. It's a tough one because you are encouraging them. I have a compromise. If you want to do this, do it in the front yard, away from where any pets might be. That would be my suggestion. In general, I try not to interfere or do anything because they have water sources. They know, because again, they're not down for the drought. They were born in the neighborhood. They live in the neighborhood. They know where all the pools and the ponds and they know all of that. So probably you don't need to. There will be animals that are pushed down from the fire during these times. It isn't wrong to put some water out, but again, don't do it in the backyard. Do it in the front, well away from where, your pets might be.
Thank you. Another question from Michelle Santucci is, what should you do if a coyote approaches you when you're out walking with or without a dog? And I'll expand on that. What do you do if a a pack of coyotes starts circling you while you're out walking?
Okay, and then really glad you brought this up because I have to put this in the presentation and I haven't yet. And this is denning behavior, right? So in general, coyote is going to avoid. He may boldly stare back, but he's not going to be approaching or, he's just interested. He's curious. That's what's going on. When it's denning season, and it can begin as early as now, and it can go as late as, once those babies, after the babies are born, what'll happen is escorting behavior. So you're just walking your dog, you're going along the same route you always go. You may have seen the coyotes before, whatever. Everybody does their thing, but this time they're following you as you go. And it's really scary because it's very clear that they're following you. And again, when that happens, in general, it will be during denning season, and in general, it will be because you were walking closer to their den than they were comfortable with, and they're just making sure that you're not gonna go mess with their den, that you're just walking by. And that's usually what that's about. They are there are not I mean, they're very few. Because as soon as you say, oh, wildlife never does that, wildlife will do that, right? But in general, they're not um attacking. They may be intimidating, but they're not coming in to attack. But they can be very scary if they're following you. And what I would do is, depending on the size of my dog, if I have a dog with me, and if he's a small dog, I may pick him up. If he's a larger dog, I'm glad that I have my 6-foot leash because he's close to me. And I will have my air horn around my neck. And if I am, in general, I'm just going to try to just go and do my thing. But if I'm feeling threatened, I'm going to use my air horn and I'm going to use my body in a big, kind of scary way that's going to give him a start because a coyote is a fight or flight animal. And I want to encourage him to flee. And he will. He really doesn't want an interaction. When his meal is the size of a rodent, he's not looking at my dog and me like prey. That's not what's happening there. So um I don't know if that clears it up.
Okay, thank you. Another question from Lori. What do we do if we see an injured coyote? Who do we call?
Also a great question, and I need to add that to my slides as well. In our area here in Ventura County or Los Angeles County, the California Wildlife Center is a licensed rehabber that can help with an injured or mange. If you see a coyote with mange, you can call them about that as well.
All right. And questions about the coyote photos that you had. Is the first one in the presentation the one of the coyote that was rescued from a small grocery store in Chicago?
Yes, I believe so. I'm not 100%. I just really love the look on his face. But yes, because coyotes find themselves in some very interesting situations in times,
Can you
stores and trains and inside dog doors in homes, right?
can you direct me to the produce section?
Yeah.
Okay. And Nicole Corrado has asked a bunch of great questions here. Why are jackal and coyotes considered different species, but red and gray fox considered the same? I'm sorry, red foxes considered the same species around the world.
Okay. Um, well, the coyote and the jackal are on different continents and, they've evolved differently. They are, pretty sure the jackal even has like a weird smell. So they are definitely different. And as far as foxes go, Um, they're they're further apart than even the jackal and the coyote. The foxes are, one of them is a true fox, one of them is not. Um, and I don't know why. But and I don't know very much about jackals, to be fair, and I don't know as much about red foxes, to be fair, too. I mostly specialize in California wildlife.
Okay, and one other question. Do you, Teranga team, charge for presentations to other groups? Maybe I should send you the link for the person who sent you that, and so you can answer that person directly.
I love it. I love it. I will. It depends on the situation in general. We do appreciate a donation for our presentations, but we also value accessibility.
Yeah.
So, we work with different groups in different capacities.
Okay, and one last question from Tanya. How any tips or ideas on how we can talk to neighbors who are using rodenticide about not using it?
This is a great question, and it's very difficult. One of the things I like to do is, when we have a situation where we have a mangy coyote, we know that someone in the area is using rodenticide, we'll have a little flyer that we can put in the mailboxes of the people in the area just to let them know. Um, Poison Free Malibu has some lawn signs. I know I have them in my yard, and I know that my neighbors talk about them. Um, but it's hard. It's really hard because for many people, calling the exterminator and having them use the rodenticide is the quick and easy and convenient option, and they don't feel like exploring other options. Um, and that's, I wish that we had more options for humane pest control, right? And so there is a humane pest control place. I have some recommendations for that. So if sometimes what's helpful is giving people an alternative, right? And so if you can say, hey, why don't you try this? Then, and the humane pest control has to do with going in, seeing how rodents might be getting in or out, sealing things off, and excluding in a similar way that we do. So there are ways to do it. Convincing the neighbors is absolutely the hardest thing, but also as a teacher, I really believe that sharing the information, showing them a picture of a mangy coyote, or saying, hey, have you seen that coyote in the neighborhood that doesn't look so good? This is what's going on, and I don't know if you're using rodenticide or not, but. And then another technique that I think is really fun is get a barn owl box, or don't, and put something in boxes or on doorknobs, doorknob hangers I love, and just say, hey, we put up a barn owl box. And so if you're using rodenticide, now would be a great time to stop, because we're encouraging owls, you're changing the dynamic. So maybe they want to change it with you. But a lot of times people just don't know. And I think talking to them can be helpful, educating them with what you know. And my favorite resource, Poison Free Malibu, go to their website and look at the resources they have, and they have further information for educating neighbors as well.
Great. A couple of people have asked where to get the whistles or the poppers or the air horns.
So if you ever come to our events, I always have bags of them that are available. But really anything will work. Oh my gosh, I just got this at the party store. Look at this thing. You can just find them everywhere. I have a cowbell, right? So any, like a whistle from REI would work. Um, the air horn, it could be like, sometimes sports teams like to pass those out or sell them on their website or whatever, because it's a way to be loud at their event. That's what I think this thing was. But I'm just always looking for things that are loud. It doesn't have to be anything specific at all. But I do like the little air horn though, and we do have them. Um, but I don't know where you would buy this particular kind of air horn by itself.
Okay. And let's see, a couple of other questions about birth control for coyotes. Are there people or organizations that are doing trap, neuter, and release for coyotes?
I haven't heard of that. Um, I haven't heard of that, so I don't know.
Okay, great. Let's see. Yes, are coyotes attracted to dog toys and children in the yard?
So, in general, coyotes are actually deterred by children in the yard because that's something loud and unpredictable and scary and weird. And again, it doesn't look like prey because it's taller than them. So, in general, kids in the yard, not interesting. What was the first part of the question?
Uh, Dog toys, are they
Dog
attracted to
toys.
dog toys in the yard?
They can be. And the one thing they're very interested in, that they took from those studies I was talking about earlier in the LA area, is shoes. They love shoes. If you're people that leave your slippers or shoes or something right outside the door, if and they go missing, like coyotes, just like dogs, right? They love the smell, they love to take it for a walk somewhere. And it just depends on the coyote and the situation. There's been, I've seen lots of evidence on social media where coyotes are engaging with dog toys and beds and stuff in the yard. So I think it just depends on the coyote, and it depends on the yard and the neighborhood and all of that.
Maybe to be safe, bring your kids and dog toys in at night.
That is excellent advice. Bring the kids and the dog toys in at night, and you'll be, and the shoes.
Yeah. Okay. Um, Bill, do you have anything else you'd like to say?
Well, Steve, you know me very well, and of course I do. So first of all, I want to say thank you very much to Dana for guiding us through so many, or actually to you, pardon me, for guiding us through the questions, and for Dana for the presentation, and for everyone attending tonight for their participation and the great questions. So a couple of things I just want to say, Dana, that really stuck out to me tonight were my notes were I like the whistle, so we'll be following up on the whistle. I love that. The Canal Valley Catio tour. Uh, I'm not a cat person, but that should be quite interesting. I want to look into the Salton Sea trip. That sounds very fun. And of course, owl boxes are a great way to manage rodents in the neighborhood without rodenticide. So thank you for covering all of that. I really appreciate it. So thank you, Dana, for leading our discussion and sharing your insights with us. Our event has now come to an end. Like I said, I know I've got a few takeaways from tonight, and I hope everyone that has attended does as well. If nothing else, I hope this webinar gave everyone the opportunity to stop and think a little bit more carefully about our natural environment and how to best navigate the open spaces alongside coyotes and other wildlife. So to all the attendees tonight, I say go forth and enjoy the Canal Valley open spaces. The wind has calmed down. The trails are open. They're actually beautiful right now after that little bit of rain that we got. But please do stay on the trail, and please report any wind or fire or rain damage that you may find on our website under trail report forms, Trail Watch Report. These go straight to the rangers who can safely address damage from events as we've just witnessed. So please do, while you're out there, take a lot of photos, soak in the beauty, enjoy our Conejo Valley, and please continue to be partners with us in the months and years to come. Thank you all for your donations, your volunteerism, and for your participation. I'll see you all, I hope, out on the trails. And until next time, good night. And once again, thank you very much, Dana and Steve. Great job. Thank you.